just for a change, so that's why I didn't have a video for you. But I'm back with a bang this time around. I've got La Liga, I've got Getafe against Real Sociedad. So I had a great time at Getafe B last time around, and that's why I've decided to go back to see the Getafe first team in action. But I'm really starting to doubt my decision to get the Getafe club crest tattooed down my arm. Now, they really didn't make it very easy to find out about this game. There was almost no information anywhere about it. You can't buy tickets online. There was nothing on the Getafe Twitter feed until Sunday morning, until a couple of hours before the game, and even on the website the game was barely mentioned at all. Now, Getafe luckily are not known for having very many fans, to be blunt, so you know, if you head along on the morning of the game, you'll no doubt get a ticket. But they've definitely got a lot of work to do to get more punters through the door. I also want to just quickly mention that I'm breaking away from the norm and I'm recording this introduction after I've actually been to the game. That's because of a time-related disaster on Sunday morning. Clock's going back. What a schoolboy error. Right, time for a history lesson. So back in the day, there were two different clubs in Getafe, one either side of the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s and 40s. You had Getafe Football Club in English, first of all, and they were followed by Club Deportivo de Getafe, who were actually liquidated in 1982, having never made it higher than the Spanish second division. Now, like a lot of the clubs that I've seen already this season, the current club is a merger of two previous clubs from Getafe, one of which was actually a Real Madrid's supporters club. Now, they started off in the regional leagues in 1983, but they shot up the divisions fairly quickly and made it to La Liga for the first time ever in 2004-2005. Now, the best period in their history is undoubtedly between 2007 and 2008. In both years, they made it to the Copa del Rey final, they lost to Sevilla and then to Valencia, and in the 07-08 season, their first ever season in Europe, they made it to the quarter-finals of the UEFA Cup, where they were eliminated by Bayern Munich. But after 12 years in La Liga, Getafe were finally relegated, and to be honest, most pundits and experts thought that they would never be back. But fair play to them, they defied all the odds and made it back at the very first attempt, winning in the playoffs last season. It does look as though Getafe might be in for a little bit of a struggle though this season. They did thrash Villarreal 4-0 at the end of September, but they've won only 2 of their opening 9 La Liga games overall, and they've lost 3 of their last 4 matches in all competitions. So they're in 14th place in the table at the moment. That's 3 points above the relegation zone. Now, as for Real Sociedad, as I've said in previous videos, I'm not going to talk about away teams too much if I think there's a decent chance that I'm going to go and see them play at home. And although Real Sociedad are obviously nowhere near Madrid, San Sebastian is without doubt one of my favourite Spanish cities. It's absolutely beautiful if you get the chance to go, and I'm hoping that I'll get up there at some point relatively soon. So I'll just give you a little bit of information about their form. They're currently 5 points better off than Getafe at the moment, and there's basically been loads of goals in their matches. They're third top scorers in the division. They've scored more goals than Real Madrid this season, but only 3 teams have actually conceded more often. Now, as I mentioned in the previous video, I don't think there's too much to see in Getafe itself, but there is one thing that is particularly interesting, and that's the Cerro de los Angeles, which is a hill to the southeast of the stadium, which marks the geographical centre of the Iberian Peninsula. So if you go up there, there's a monastery, there's also a monument up there, and if you look carefully on the walls, you'll actually see bullet marks, because there were battles from the Spanish Civil War that were fought up there. Football, travel, culture, history, all for free, eh? Spoiling you. Right, after a fair bit of hoo-ha, we are at the Coliseum Alfonso Perez. You might well remember Alfonso Perez playing for Spain in the European Championships in '96, also in 2000. I think he scored a goal in both of those tournaments. You might also remember, if you spent any amount of time like I did playing Championship Manager 97-98, he was one of the highest valued players in that game, along with his Real Betis strike partner Oli, who didn't really go on to do anything very significant. Alfonso did start out at Real Madrid. He was actually in the Getafe youth team. He was from Getafe, that's why the stadium was named after him. Then he went on to play for Real Madrid and Barcelona, but mostly for Real Betis. And apparently the stadium was named after him when he was only 26 years old, and he's actually never played a match in this stadium before. Right, it might be in the worst possible spot for filming. Got the sun right in my eyes. It's quite nice though.
for some reason, they're in the away end with the Real Sociedad fans, which is absolutely fine. Although they asked me if I wanted to be in with the home fans and the away fans, and I said home fans. Although to be fair, it might actually be better in here. Kick off, so it's too early for a lot of people. Still steaming in. See why Real Sociedad have got such a poor defensive record this season. They're absolutely all over the place. Keeper's just played out again from the back there. He got away with that one, but he's made a hash of it a couple of times. Dumping it in their own box, kicking it against each other. Getafe are surely going to score. Dubious offside decision there. Okay, Molina would have been clean through. Spanish art of, oh, I'm about to lose the ball, so I'm going to throw myself to the ground. There we go. It's so hot here. It sounds like a broken record, but is this summer ever going to end? Actually moved up a row, so slightly closer to the sun. I'm feeling it. Unbelievable stuff. Penalty for Getafe. Just under 10 minutes to go. This could be a deciding moment. Just us hardcore Real Sociedad fans are staying.
Right, the first thing that I have to say is that atmosphere-wise, that was way better than what I was actually expecting. You know, as I mentioned earlier, Getafe are not exactly known for having a lot of fans or for having noisy fans, but they made quite a lot of noise towards the end of that game. And I'm actually really glad that they turned the match on its head, because I would never have got to see that side of their supporters otherwise. So yeah, I think the substitutions really made a big difference when they went 2 up front in the last 20-25 minutes with Angel Rodriguez coming on. He really made a big difference. His movement alongside Jorge Molina caused the Real Sociedad backline quite a lot of problems. They were having it quite comfortable up until that point. And you know, Real Sociedad didn't really get going. They did have a couple of chances on the counter-attack in the second half, and if they scored the second goal, then things would probably have been different. But as it was, I think Getafe probably deserved a win on the basis of their strong finish to the game. Now, as for the overall experience, as I said, much better than I was actually expecting. You know, it's a nice stadium, you'll have seen. It is quite expensive. I mean, we paid €35 for a ticket, and that was the cheapest ticket, so it's not particularly cheap, but it's fairly easy to get to as well. Get the commuter train I mentioned in the previous video, I'll mention it again, to El Casar or to Las Margaritas on lines C3 or C4 of the metro. I think it's only a 15-minute ride from Atocha, or a little bit more from Sol, so it's pretty easy to get to from Madrid city centre. So the answer to the last quiz question, the question was, what is the highest football stadium in Europe? And I gave you a clue that was named after a discovered former football manager. Now, the football manager was Ottmar Hitzfeld, and it's the Ottmar Hitzfeld Stadium, funnily enough, which is in Switzerland, is at an altitude seemingly of 2,000 metres. So they must go through a hell of a lot of balls when they get kicked over the stand. Now, there's not a quiz question for this video, but instead I'm going to ask you to tell me about your experiences of going to football games that surprised you. So if you had any games that you went to that were better than you thought, or worse than you thought, or stadiums that you liked more than you thought you would, or not as much as you thought you would, then let me know in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you've all enjoyed. Please remember to subscribe to the Team on Tour on YouTube. You can also follow me on Twitter. I'll be most active there. I'm also on Instagram and on Facebook as well. And I'll see you guys again for the next video.